There's a sentence that you've never said out loud, not to your friends, not to your family, not even to yourself when you're alone in your car, but you're thinking it. And when you do, you push it away. You go back to doing your best to be hopeful and patient and profess to yourself one more time, it's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. But the thought keeps coming back around and it sounds like this. I don't think they're going to change. You know, the moment you say it out loud, then you're going to finally have to do something about it. So we won't allow ourselves to do that. And nobody talks about this part because we're all trying to explore it, let alone answer it. So here's what the current research says about relationship conflicts. 69% of them are called perpetual problems, meaning the same challenges just keep coming back around for us to solve. But we keep pushing them out of our minds again and again. How can you solve a problem you're not willing to look at squarely? Now, I want you to know that happy couples have conflicts just like unhappy ones. The difference isn't the absence of problems and conflict. It's the principles and skills they've learned and practiced continually that move them through the inevitable ups and downs of conflict and chaos, misunderstanding. Which means if you're stuck in the same place of conflict, i.e. it's on repeat, you're not broken and you're not a failure at relationships. You simply haven't been handed the right tools yet. I'm Staci Bartley, a relationship mentor, and with me today are my co-host and lover Tom and our daughter Brooke. Welcome to Love Shack Live. This is the show for anyone at a relationship's crossroads, tired of the same silences and the same arguments, and is ready for something real that feels like it just might take us somewhere new again. In a recent episode, we asked a question that Brooke stumbled upon while scrolling social media. Am I an assumer or am I an asker? We shared the reality that most of us are assumers. Essentially, we don't speak up, and if we do, it's commonly not an ask, but more of a blame, complain in an effort to try and get our needs met, which is a very different thing from asking. So the question that we're going to explore together today that almost nobody is willing to ask is, dun, 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 what if I genuinely asked again and again and again and absolutely nothing changed? Now what? It's important that we dive into this one with intention and care, great care. Here we go.
Hey, thank you for coming. Welcome to the Love Shack.
Learning to use your voice, learning to get specific about what your needs and wants are, and learning how to ask for what you need to ease our pains and frustrations and feel supported in doing so is necessary when co-creating with another person. It is absolutely a must-have skill if we want to create success there. The natural next question is what happens when you do all of those things and nothing changes? So that's one where we just need to take a breath. Like, whoo. Man, I don't even want to look at that question. But if we're brave and we can step into the sweaty armpit experience that I'm bringing to the table right now, we need to answer this.
Well, it certainly is a very valid question.
100%. In fact, we had this question from someone on our social media channels. And this question is this: can you help me answer how to help a man stop or reduce drinking when it's the same conversation you don't want to have anymore? Do I accept it and just do my own thing, like go to the gym and feel more division, or keep trying to help him be present and healthy?
Or certainly versions of it.
Not necessarily how to stop someone from drinking, but we do get the question over and over and over again. Okay, you've told me to ask. I did, and I've asked a lot of times, and they're still showing up in exactly the same way and nothing has changed.
It's really a question about disappointment. It's a question about asking for something important and not seeing any progress. And it might be really important to you, but something that the other person is trying to avoid. So this same pain of disappointment that turns into frustration, that then turns into resentment, shows up in many, many places. Yes, with drinking, but also in our vocation, our careers. It also shows up in intimacy. It shows up in our ability to parent together, and money. And regardless of the category of life, the emotional pain and disappointment is the same as we say things like, I've shared this with you, it matters to me, but the same thing keeps happening over and over and over again. Or I've tried so hard to explain it. Why don't they get it? Because the same thing keeps happening over and over and over again. I've asked for what I feel would change things, but the same thing just keeps happening over and over and over again. So when nothing seems to change and we don't feel like there's any progress that's going to take us to a better place, then we start to become exhausted from the asking, and that all turns into resentment, frustration, and even rage on the backside because we don't know what else to do, right? So now that we've learned how to do the asking part, which I've already said is very, very important, we need to navigate becoming exhausted askers, because that can also become the next challenge once we've asked and asked and asked and asked. So it plays out like this. If I communicate clearly enough, or I say it in just the perfect way, and then they'll finally change. That's kind of the buy-in. That's kind of the idea that we believe is true. And when they don't change, the unfortunate place that we go in our human brains is we start making up stories. And we can make up some real doozies, can't we? Mm-hmm. Like, ooh, and they happen so fast. So if you're not willing to change and we can't have a conversation about this, and I've explained it and explained it and explained it, and you still don't change, well, then our stories turn into things like this. They don't care. This relationship doesn't matter. I don't matter. I'm asking for too much. If I mattered more and they really cared, they do what I simply asked them to do. This is a no-brainer, right? And in my experience, it doesn't seem like there's a lot that I'm asking for, because here's the kicker. When we're first getting good at asking, we'll ask for the minimum that we think we can actually get. We're not asking for the whole enchilada. And believe me, there's so much more that I want to ask you for. And you're telling me I can't get this little teeny tiny thing that I feel like I so deserve and can feel entitled to, if we're being honest. And so it always feels like if you can't do this, well, then that means this, because my hopes and dreams are so much bigger than this. But if I can't get this, I don't even know what to do. And that's an important thing for us to speak to. You need to know that asking does not operate like a vending machine. You don't put the ask in and then out pops what you were, the little teeny tiny piece you thought you were hoping to get. And then it turns into a horror picture where I fall off a cliff and go, well, that means this. And by the way, I'm not mocking this. I've done this personally and probably will do it again.
Me too. And so is Dad, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, gosh, yes.
So this human experience of falling into what I call this rabbit hole is very real. And I want you to know across the board, it happens in all relationships. I'm going to be bold here and say all, because I don't say that very often. But in all relationships, when we're disappointed about what it is we're not getting out of the relationship, or the change that seems so obvious to us that would make such a huge difference for everybody, when that's not seen and reciprocated, wow, we immediately fall into a rabbit hole. So you need to know, because it doesn't operate like a vending machine, and asking also doesn't guarantee a compliance to your request, it's sometimes not going to give you the desired change too in the way in which you think it needs to be done. Specific asking does one very important thing. When you ask, you're giving yourself clarity and what I call a pop of validation. It's like you, the biology that you are, the psychology that you are, goes, I nailed it. That is the thing I need and I want that would make all the difference for me. And when I ask for it, it creates clarity for your partner too. Now your partner is very clear about how you see things. And that clarity is accomplished through the ask. It gives your partner the clarity on what works and doesn't work for you. But it does not give you control of others. Right? That's where the vending machine idea comes from. It doesn't automatically mean you're going to get the thing that you asked for. And when we get a no to our asks, the disappointment can also send us into that rabbit hole of, well, and that means all of these other things. But I want to point out that it doesn't actually mean those things. And sometimes it's really hard for us to catch our lightning fast brain from falling into that rabbit hole. So before we automatically decide that they don't care about me and our relationship, let's look at what actually might be happening instead outside of our own personal fears and insecurities. Okay. So possibility one that I want to present to you to think about is they don't understand. Even though you've laid it out and you've explained it, it still doesn't make sense to them. The ask is often not as clear as we think it is. It seems really obvious to us, but we often forget that they have a whole different subset of experiences and ideas that they're pulling from, and it just might not be the same as mine. So as mad as I want to get that there's not this translation happening, I need to accept the fact that communication is really clunky. It's super clunky. The exchange of nuanced ideas and experiences is really, really difficult to translate. Okay. And yet we think it's just a piece of cake and should be a piece of cake because it makes so much sense to me. It doesn't make sense to anybody else, but it makes sense to me. I can't emphasize that enough. Like, I think a great example of this is when we do live workshops and we hold up a simple picture of an object. And this, let's just say for the sake of our conversation, it's an umbrella. It's just some innate object. And we go around the room and there's 50 butts in the seat. And we say, what's your association to this simple umbrella? Do you know that I still have yet to have two people have the same association to an inanimate object like that? Sure, they can all see and identify that it's an umbrella, but one is going to go, well, that reminds me of my apple tree out in my backyard. My mom always had an umbrella leaning against it. Or, oh, that makes me think of the old house where I just loved. We had this whole place where we would store our umbrellas. Or that makes me think about how much I used to love to play in the rain as a kid. So there's so many different places that we can go. And I'm just talking about an inanimate object. I'm not talking about a very nuanced experience that's funneled through my beliefs, my values, my desires, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm expecting us all to come to the same conclusion. So that's why I say communication is really, really clunky. The exchange of information from one human to another is no small feat. It takes tremendous patience in the listening, and it takes tremendous ability to mine that information inside of myself so that they can be cross-pollinated. So yeah, maybe they just simply don't understand. They're having a very different association to what it is you're saying. So we need to maybe ask more about, why is this such a difficult thing for you to understand? What is it you don't understand about what it is I'm saying? Do you understand these key parts? I just want to check in and make sure I'm not trying to mock you. Those would be very legitimate asks on top of your ask, like an exploration of where could we maybe be off and how is this not cross-pollinating? Instead of getting all upset that it's not, let's dig deeper into why it's not and how we can actually create a streamline of understanding there between us. Okay. And that's a lot of the effort and work of communication in and of itself.
We'll be right back.
You know that moment when your partner says something, your whole body goes hot, and 2 seconds later you say something you wish you hadn't? That moment has a name, and it's a missing skill. Here's what nobody taught us. Love isn't the problem in our relationships. Missing skills are. The ability to pause, to know what we actually feel, to say it in a way that someone can hear us. If you want to see which skills are already working for you and which ones are quietly tripping you up, take the Better Love Skills Quiz. It's free, takes less than 10 minutes, and at the end you get your Better Love Blueprint, a personalized look at where you're strong, where you're stuck, and exactly what to do next. Go to betterlovequiz.com. That's betterlovequiz.com. Your free blueprint is waiting. Another thing I wanted to add is the more we ask for something, I feel like the less nicely we ask it. So in addition to them not understanding it, because maybe they didn't understand it the first time we asked, but they didn't know that it was possible to ask for us to ask it in a different way, that it was easier to understand because the conversation was already so tense to begin with. So then not only are you asking something that they don't really understand, but as we ask more, it's very human nature of us to get more and more frustrated and less explanatory because we feel like we've explained it and we've asked it and you're not listening. So, they're not understanding, but you're asking it in a less like nice way.
Not to mention the increase in volume of how you're asking.
I was just going to say that.
Promise you that damn volume level of your ass has gone up 10x.
Well, and you're using less words because you're yelling and you're angry, so.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about us walking out to CrossFit day before yesterday, and you asked something and I didn't catch it. And you're like, babe, the water bottle's on the table. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I missed that.
Welcome to my world, listener. You gotta have proper hydration. We sweat like
so
a
spot
lot.
on. It's so spot on. And I've done it too, right? Like, what did you say? Shut the door. Okay. Just shut the door. Right. So
not sure why we always think you got to say it louder.
Well, yes, we do know.
Yeah.
Yes, we do know because it feels confusing. Yeah. And so we speak more and we speak louder. And, even it always brings me to when we've traveled to Italy, babe, and you're not really understanding in our broken, Spanglish is Spanish and English, but so what Italian. Do you call Italian?
I don't know.
Italian-ish. I don't know. Anyway, we don't need to spend any time on that. But in the trying to translate, I constantly notice myself going, what did you say again? Okay, let me say it like this. It's like way up here. And it just is human nature. And we sometimes don't even realize we're doing it. Yeah. Right. And just trying to, in our desperation of getting the message to translate, so we got to be aware of that. So hopefully in that misunderstanding, we can bring some awareness to this. But we actually have to, if we realize that it's just not translating, then maybe we need to ask some deeper questions about, I don't feel like you're still understanding where I'm coming from. Is that true? And what are some things that we can explore to enhance the understanding? Or what did you hear me say? Right? So that we can see and do a checkpoint and a vet point that this is actually translating.
I feel like when there's kind of a mismatch between emotional IQs in relationships, which I would say, again, probably is almost every couple. It's very common for people who have lower emotional intelligences to match with people who have higher emotional intelligence. And there's nothing wrong with either person. That's just how it goes. It's like avoidance and anxious coming together. It's the same thing. So I feel like when we get into a place where the person who really understands what they need and what they're asking for asks the person who maybe is less familiar with talking about emotions and feelings, they can ask in a way that feels very comfortable for them, but it feels very foreign for the other partner. And then using what Mom 2 just said as an example, like, I feel like you didn't really understand what I was saying, or did you understand? I feel like it can put the person who didn't understand in an awkward position because they feel like maybe if they admit that they didn't understand it, you'll think they're stupid or you'll make fun of them. Well, how could you not understand that? And I feel like we do get in patterns in our relationships where even admitting that you didn't understand is off limits. Because you'll just say, no, I understood you, because you want to avoid the lecture.
Well, yeah,
along with it.
You just described, I think that quickly turns what you just described, Brookie, into what we often talk about. You're into the courtroom now. You're not in a classroom and you're going to get freaking interrogated. How the heck did you not understand it? That was the most simple thing I've ever said in my, blah, blah, blah. So,
well, and let's just, as you're pointing out, commonly in couples too, there is an emotional IQ practice that's not balanced and equivalent. But we also tend, if I'm a logical person, I'm going to be very attracted to an emotional person, right? And so now you're fighting that as well, where one's trying to approach this from logic and can't figure out why you're having an emotional meltdown right now, right? Yep. And the person who's having the emotional meltdown can't figure out how you could be so insensitive to this emotional challenge that I'm feeling. And we're just approaching it from two very different polar opposites. So all of that to say, the landscape is ripe with misunderstanding. As clear as you think you are, there are still so many landmines of misunderstanding that we don't take into account. And us getting frustrated, although that is a very frustrating experience, often doesn't lend to further understanding that we're really wanting.
just like an internal checkpoint to have is when you are asking your partner, hey, did you understand what I asked for? Are you genuinely asking out of curiosity, or are you ready to rip them a new one if they say no? Because even if you think you're genuinely asking, like the feeling that you have inside while you're asking is going to be palpable to them. And that's literally what creates the conditions that allow you to have the conversation you need to have.
Well, and now that we've had this conversation about understanding, could we just make it okay to misunderstand each other?
Exactly.
That doesn't have to mean anything. We don't have to go anywhere with it. Can we just tell the truth that all human beings are going to misunderstand each other at some point in time? It's only a matter of time because we are all having very unique and different experiences probably every single moment of every single day. And even if we do share an experience, like we go to a movie together or we're having a dinner party with our friends, everybody's going to walk away with their own version of what went down that day.
I mean, really, it's the foundational skill set that we teach everyone is in the movie experience we're all having. I mean, you just talked about it. It's so true. And this is just the amplification of it in my view. Like, you've got to realize, even when you think it is so simple. Come on, Staci just shared about holding up a picture of an umbrella and not having 50 same answers. Well, how about when that's 1,000x different as far as the stakes versus just your intimate special someone, and you're not holding up a picture of an umbrella. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's just be fair.
As maddening as that possibility, they may not understand what you're saying, right? And they may not be willing or feel safe enough to say they don't understand, or they don't want to open up that conversation. So they're going to say they understand when they really don't. So let's step into possibility number 2. They don't know how to do the thing you're asking them for. And this is a very common one that I see all the time. And it generally plays out like this. Person who's emotionally equipped and has spent the majority of their life being able to translate their thoughts and feelings into a language that they can share, does it on a dime, no problem at all. Ta-da, goes, why can't you just tell me how you think and feel? I don't understand. I don't get it. And the person goes, I don't know how to tell you that it's not that easy for me, right? It's commonly a person who hasn't spent a whole lot of time in that place, mining that information and being able to articulate it. And we don't see that commonly as a skill. We see it as a withhold. So we don't realize that being able to do those things it's really challenging, especially if I don't know where to go to access that information. And then finding the words to actually put it into a sentence that makes sense to me is something that I'm going to clunk around with. Like, it's going to be clunky and bumpy at first. And so you're asking me to tell you how I think and feel, but I really don't know how or where to go to get that information because I've never spent any time there. And we think just because we're humans, come on, chop, chop. How hard can it be? It's really easy for me. Well, it might be really hard for your partner. It may not be a withhold so much as it is, I don't know how to do that, and I'm embarrassed to say so. I'm questioning whether there's something wrong with me because you seem to do it effortlessly. And all that does is bring up more feelings and emotions that I don't know how to translate into words. So it's just easier for me to avoid the whole conversation altogether.
But then the person who is asking for it believes, like you said, that they're withholding. Just so people really understand, they believe that their partner either doesn't care enough to share, thinks that sharing is stupid, thinks that talking about thoughts and feelings don't matter, thinks that they don't love me enough to really spend that time having that conversation with me. Meanwhile, the other person is literally sitting there thinking, I don't know how to do this,
And I'm feeling feelings of embarrassment, and I'm feeling judgment, and maybe a little dose of shame in there because I really don't know what to do or what you want me to say. Yeah. I feel like I'm letting you down. I mean, there's so many complex emotions that if I don't really have a good working acumen of that, you can see where in a nanosecond they're emotionally overwhelmed and they just want out. I just want out of this conversation. And sometimes when I try and say what it is I want to say, there's a reaction to that then I don't know what to do with, and I don't know how to dance with that. So it feels unmanageable. So being able to say, I'm not really good at that, or I don't know how to do that, is a very freeing thing, but probably not one somebody who doesn't realize they don't have the skill to do could say. I wouldn't realize that it was a skill thing or a practice thing. I would just think that there's something wrong with me. And so that is a huge possibility of why it is you might ask and ask and ask and not see any change. I don't know how to do the thing you're asking me of, and when I've tried, it's not gone so well. So let's not do that anymore, okay? I don't want to do that. This is very uncomfortable for me. And I feel a lot of guilt and shame and embarrassment and judgment around it anyway. And the person who's not getting what they need is probably heaping that on. Come on, how hard can it be? Just tell me how you feel. How difficult can it be? Well, we don't realize that very often is just intensifying all of those uncomfortable feelings we just spoke of. What about possibility number 3? They don't agree. They hear your ask, they understand your ask, but I don't agree. And I don't really like the way this goes when I say, you know what? I don't agree with what you're saying. I don't agree, and I don't feel like that's something I can give. Yeah. Okay, well, that's going to open and lead to a whole another conversation. And if I'm already gassed emotionally for the day, that's probably the last place I want to go. Let's just be honest. Like, oh gosh, I don't agree. I feel uncomfortable. Makes me brings up a pit in the bottom of my stomach. But I'm just going to be quiet. Huh? This is where you get a lot of those. What? Huh? What did you say? Hey, listen, I can't hear right now. Let me just run out to my car. Honey, what? I can't, I'm just cooking. We'll get to it later. Like it's amazing how we can kind of divert what it is we don't want to talk about and try and do it in a very kind, thoughtful way. They may not agree because of a few things that maybe you've never considered. Maybe they have different priorities. They're wanting to go X, Y, and Z, and you're suggesting we go over there, and we're not having the conversations to discern maybe a hybrid of the two. That usually happens when we start to live autonomous from each other. I have my thing I do, and you have your thing you do. That's all great and well and good, but where do we co-create in the middle, and how do we strive for priorities that we're unified on? If we can't have conversations about these things, it's going to be really difficult for us to pull in the same direction. So in addition to maybe different priorities, that kind of leads us to, I want to explore different ideas. I want to co-create with you. You got some ideas, I got some ideas. How do we meet in the middle? So it's really important that sometimes I feel like I have to say yes when somebody asks me something because I'm not very good at saying no. But the truth is, I really don't agree, and I don't want to do the thing you're asking me to do. And we have a difficult time realizing that if I could say that and it could be received well and not perceived as a rejection so much as, oh, okay, well, what are your ideas? We could actually co-create more together and not less. And so this is often a piece that we step over too, where I pretend like I'm okay with it, but I'm really not. But then my behavior gives it away. My behavior showcases that I'm really not on board. I'm not really going to do the thing that I just said yes to because I have different desires. I have different priorities. I have different opinions about how to solve this problem or what it is we need to do. But we're not having the conversation to co-create something that would probably be a hybrid of everybody's ideas. The classic mastermind piece where, yeah, there's my perspective and what I think needs to happen, but there's also a secondary perspective. And when you co-create those together, you often come up with something that's much better than the two of you could have on your own. And very often in our romantic relationships, we miss those moments. One feels like they have to acquiesce and then go along with and put up with. And we really miss the synergy that's created when we can understand that maybe we don't see it eye to eye, but how would you like to do it? And here's how I'd like to do it. And out of that usually bursts something that neither one of us had come up with on our own. How about the fourth possibility? They don't have the emotional capacity. This is a real thing. They're stuck in their own emotional overwhelm because of burnout or stress or anxiety or depression, addiction, some kind of an internal conflict that I'm having where I don't have the bandwidth to maybe consider somebody else's perspectives or needs right now because I'm too busy trying to keep myself together, make it through the day, get my own pants on, and just plod through what it is I need to handle for myself. And I don't have it in the tank. We don't recognize that emotional capacity is a very real thing. If somebody didn't have any physical capacity because of an illness or some kind of a physical limitation and they needed to take some time and just regather, we can wrap our head around that much, much easier than this concept of emotional capacity. But it's very real, just like my physical capacity.
That makes me think, though, specific to the question that they reached out on social media, that was specific to, say, drinking. How would you speak to that if that's been a recurring pattern? And it is, it's a capacity issue, but if you don't think I don't think that capacity is ever going to be there, what do I do? So not only things aren't changing, but things aren't changing because I don't think he or she is ever going to have the capacity because they're dealing with a lot of very significant things in their life that doesn't even allow them to. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, I mean, emotional capacity is a very real thing that we need to consider in our relationships, right? Yeah. There might be significant things that compromise capacity for the duration of our relationship. And the easiest way to navigate that is if I can tell the truth about that. And then I need to accept that because I'm never going to be able to control the outcome. Remember, this isn't a vending machine. If we recognize that I may never have the capacity to offer up what it is you need, well, then I either need to accept that or we need to tell the truth and maybe let this go, or maybe explore a myriad of opportunities and experiences in between those two extremes.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's over, but we can't just negate the fact that I have these hopes and dreams and desires and you're finding that you don't have the emotional capacity because some of the things that you're wrestling with. Once we tell the truth about that, again, we go back to what we just talked about. Maybe there's something that we can creatively create that would meet both of our needs because now we're actually maybe telling the truth about what the problem or the challenge is.
Gotcha.
That's really an important distinction though, right? Like considering these as possibilities are commonly places that we don't even think to go. And that's one of the challenges of being a human being. I don't know what I don't know. So these distinctions, caring, capability, and capacity, they're all very different experiences for all of us. And we need to understand that that demands we spend some time and think about those things. Otherwise, what we're probably doing is we're promoting guilt and a sense of dis-ease emotionally by thinking you're just supposed to get it. You're just supposed to understand it. You're supposed to know what I need. You may have different desires and directions and solutions that I don't feel like I can speak up and share. Those are all going to create challenges in our ability to cross-pollinate that understanding that we so desperately need when out of the gate, communication is exceptionally clunky and listening is very difficult, right? We want to talk more than we want to listen, and there's a reason for that. So we need to move away from the conversations of how do I make them change, or how do I explain this better, or how do I convince and motivate you, because that's probably going to be installing guilt, because guilt is a very good motivator. We don't do it intentionally or maliciously, but I'm really trying to motivate you to do the thing I think is going to make all the difference. We need to move instead towards questions of what do I need to explore and understand about other people's perspectives and behaviors before I jump to my own conclusions of meaning. So what is it that I need to understand about your perspective and not just think that my perspective and my experience is the only one that has airtime here? And that might be a whole brand new thought that we've never even considered before.
Especially for people who feel like they are asking for repair. Like if they feel like they are the one who has wronged and they're asking for something from their partner to fix that, it can, I think what you just said, can be exceptionally hard and feel very foreign.
Very often, the problem in communication is that we don't get vulnerably raw. And it's amazing how we all resist that, and it's scary and we don't want to go there. But it's the very thing that's needed. And the reason why I say that is because we forget or don't know that vulnerability is the irrefutable truth of me. And when I can share it, I'm sharing my perspective. Just like we said in the beginning, an ask creates clarity of me. Now my partner can be exceptionally clear about where I'm coming from and what I need. But if that exchange on the other side of the table doesn't happen, and then we start stepping in to pretend an illusion because you don't have the safety or you don't have the skill to actually share what your vulnerability or irrefutable truth is on your side, can we start to see and understand how all of these misconceptions and misunderstandings and disappointments and heartbreaks take place? You might say one thing but do another. I might ask, but you don't feel like you can say no. I ask and you don't feel the same, but you're going to say you do. Right? Like we create these moments where we just create these missed opportunities to truly create understanding and that cross-pollination of perspectives.
So do you think many of us, we step into asking and we get really good and confident with it, but we don't understand that, just like in communication, you say someone's got to be the talker and someone's got to be the listener. Just as in asking doesn't guarantee that you're going to receive exactly what you're asking back. Is that fair enough? I mean, and we tend to associate, well, no, I'm knocking out of the park. I'm going to ask and this is going to go great. Right?
Oh yeah. And then I'm going to finally get the thing that I need, because asking, those of us who are not good askers, asking makes your armpits really sweaty. Like that's a hard skill to allow yourself to step into.
And then when you get,
gate,
you feel some confidence in that, and perhaps maybe for the first time, man, you're all over this asking. Like I'm gonna knock this thing out of the park.
And then you get disappointed with the ask, and then we go, oh,
see,
I probably shouldn't have asked in the first place. This took me nowhere. No, it's actually very good that you asked.
So it's an important first part of this.
But then we don't think about all the considerations,
all the possibilities that Staci has laid out. Exactly. There, I wish you could go to, page 94. Here's how we ask and here's how it's going to go.
And here's how to be guaranteed you're going to get absolutely everything you want right here. Go to page 94.
Send me that book, listener, if you have it, please. I'd love to read it.
So thoughts that I hope that you're going to take with you today as we land this episode here is I wanted to just lay out some possibilities in case you are an exhausted asker that is probably beyond what it is you're thinking. Like the truth and the reality in that vulnerable space, or that irrefutable truth, is beyond where we commonly go in our disaster thinking, which is you don't care, you don't want this, I don't matter to you. Very rarely is it that. The frustration and the pain and the internal struggle in a relationship commonly happens because we are having a hell of a time cross-pollinating our perspectives, our needs, our wants, our desires, and we lose the sense of safety to even explore it further. And so we stop and our lives start to exist on 10 words a week. And that's an even bigger disaster, because now we're really operating in our narratives that are commonly monstrous, right?
Yeah, it makes me think about it. In all of these frameworks and skill sets that we talk about often, and believe me, Staci and I dance with this stuff just like everybody else, is there's has to be some, I'm using an athletic analogy here, or sports analogy, is there needs to be some kind of a volley, right? It just can't be one-sided. With a one-sided tennis match, there's not a match. Meaning, someone does ultimately win the point, but you got to understand there's got to be an exchange, over this way and then come back this way. So you have that ask, oh, okay, well, no, that won't work, but here's what I would be willing to do. Okay, that would be a volley, right? And easy enough for us to share this, more difficult for us to step into it, especially when we're triggered. And these processes, these new skills are going to trigger us significantly, right?
Yeah. So asking gives you clarity, not control. That's really important for us to understand that.
That's really good.
And my ask gives me clarity of myself, and it attempts to create clarity with my partner about what's important to me, what works and what doesn't work for me. But remember, they probably have some of their own that we very often fail to inquire. Asking is not a vending machine. I don't finally get really good at the ask and then expect, and that's a whole nother conversation, but expectations are consistently a place of disappointment. I set myself up expecting that if I just finally say it the way I need to, I'm finally going to get the thing out of this that I've been longing for. Our behavior is something that's different. The way I see it, the way you see it is very different, and commonly so is the emotional pain around events. It's very unique to us, and you cannot care and sacrifice enough to save someone. So we have to tell the truth about what we're seeing and what somebody's emotional capacity is, and what somebody's perspectives are. Just because we fooled around and fell in love doesn't mean that we're the same and we're all on the same page now forever and always. As we say often, love is a great place to start, but it's not a great place to actually help us navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life. And the seeking of understanding is our goal. It is always the goal. That is the goal of communication. It's not to size up evidence about who should have done what or who missed the ball or who should have known to do it differently. And that's very often where communication in these places and spaces break down. If that's where we go, it's always going to result into a fight, and then it doesn't take us anywhere in the direction that we want to go. So that's really important. It's just, here's my understanding of myself. Now, what's my understanding of you? Just to put it very plainly. And here's what I'd like to ask you for. You probably have some asks for me. What are they? If we can start cross-pollinating those ideas, it gives us better next steps as we move forward in this co-creation. Anything else that the two of you want to add?
So would you say asking is one of the foundational tenets of how we teach and mentor communication? Asking is an important part of communication that many of us don't know how to do?
Correct. Communication has many important components to it. Asking is definitely a highlighted feature, and we really dove into that in the episode where we talked about the assumers versus the askers and why that's the case. Most of us are assumers, not askers, and the importance of that is highlighted in that episode. I won't go any deeper into the communication part as far as like the ask goes. Just know this. I would encourage you to go back and listen to that episode, but it is important for us to have a voice, and it is important for us to be able to communicate that clarity to another human being, but also to myself. So asking is a core piece of that, coupled with listening, which is just as important. It seems super simple to do, but listening is very often more difficult than cross-pollinating my ask.
I would just ask you to answer the question that started this whole episode.
Yeah.
What would you say to the lady in the comments section who asked about her partner's drinking? Based on everything you've mentioned in this episode, I think it would be interesting to hear what you had to say to her.
Mm-hmm. If you're struggling with some kind of an addiction, the amount of emotional capacity that's remaining in order to consider someone else's needs and wants and desires and thoughts is very limited. It's everything I can do to manage myself, hence the drinking. Put in any addiction in the drinking component. Why do I drink? Why do I pop pills? Why do I watch porn? Because it's the thing that helps me manage myself. And I try and go without it, but then it becomes unmanageable. And so my bandwidth and my capacity to think of others outside of wrestling with my own internal experience, I just don't have it. And there's commonly a lot of guilt and shame around that because they know the thing that they're doing is impacting everyone. They have an awareness of that. And in managing that awareness, they can either get defensive and angry and act out, or they do the addiction because I don't know what else to do.
So your answer to her is?
My answer to her is, it's a complicated question, and I'm not going to give you the answer because that's something you need to sort out for yourself. But I think getting help and support around working through these things would be a much needed next step.
Not to say that there isn't a solution and a new plan that can be created, but we've got to get everything, as Staci likes to say, we got to get everything out on the table. Mm-hmm. Without that, we can't really put a plan together.
And me asking you to just simply stop drinking is not going to work. There's a reason why people drink. There's a reason why we have addictions. And to think that just because you don't have a problem with it and that's not a wrestle for you and that I should just be able to be the same. We've kind of talked about that in this episode today, haven't we? Okay, great. I love that you don't struggle with that, but I do. And I have a lot of emotional feelings around that. And I am very aware of the impact that I've had. And some days I'm willing to admit that, probably in a puddle of tears. And other days I want to pretend like that's not the case and that's not the truth. So it's very complex there.
And I would just say to the woman who asked the question, Mom too talked about the emotional capacity of the addicted person. It also requires an incredible amount of emotional capacity on the partner of the addicted person and the family of the addicted person. So
Yes.
I would say, yes, go to the gym, because it's very important that you keep yourself mentally and physically as healthy as possible, whether you want to stay or not, because you leaving is going to require you to have a lot of emotional fortitude to pick yourself up and start over, and you staying is going to require a lot of emotional capacity and fortitude, insight to help him get through it. So either way, you're going to need to skill up and build more resolve than you already have to get through what the next steps are going to be, you know?
Well said, Brookie. Well said. So how about the Better Love quiz? The last 2 weeks we've talked about finding your voice, and today we talked about what to do with the answers you're receiving from using your voice. Both of these are relationship skills. So today I invite you to take the Better Love quiz to discover what relationship skills may be creating the most challenge in your very own relationship right now.
And I'm just going to put a little fun teaser out there. If you've already taken the quiz, number one, thank you. We've received tremendous response on this, probably the most response of anything we've offered. We have a very cool something to take it to the next step with, where you realize maybe there's some skills you're not as strong in and you'd like to get better at. We've got something coming here very soon that we're really excited about as a family and a body of work and a team, and we think you will be too.
It's very affordable.
Yes.
Well, imagine you being able to go to a place and you could learn a skill. And not only could you learn that skill, you could practice that skill, and you could have our support in all of that. That's what's coming, and that's all we can say right now. But if you haven't taken the quiz, or you want to retake the quiz for a refresher, sometimes it's fun to see
where you were and where you are now.
Yeah,
exactly.
You can, again, head over to betterlovequiz.com. Follow the Fun today is a way that we can practice all that we've talked about today. And I know that this conversation can be a complex one. We talk about it like it's very cut and dry, but the emotional experience, along with not falling into those rabbit holes, as well as remembering that somebody else might have a different perspective, and then finding the safety to open up those conversations. Those are big things. Those are really, really, really big things. So I wanted to give you a way to kind of implement what it is we talked about today in a small, doable way, and catch yourself here. So here's the Follow the Fun. It's the detective game of, before deciding they don't care, or you notice that you are automatically going, they don't care, I invite you to do this instead. What might be underneath their hesitation or their lack of follow through? Consider that maybe they don't understand, or they don't know how to do what it is you want them to do, or they don't really agree, but they don't want to say so because they don't want to hurt your feelings or disappoint you. So much of this is a sweetheart message, when what I call a sweetheart undertow that we discount. The problem is not that they don't care at all. It's that they probably care too much about how you're going to receive what it is they want to say. And sometimes we don't think about that. So rather than just allow ourselves to go there, consider that these are very strong possibilities. And so my challenge to you is, ask yourself, would you be willing to share with me what comes up when I ask you for this? I would genuinely like to understand you better. That's a really important question that we can take the conversation and maybe explore it just a little better.
But you forgot the most important part of the ask,
which is,
would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, that's the invitation on the end. So would you be willing to share with me what comes up for you when I ask you for this? I would genuinely like to understand you better. Is that something you would be willing to do with me?
So that last part, it seems, and it is, it's simple, but I always like to use, you're truly, and this is obviously coming from a place of being genuine, but you're asking to be invited. And you're extending an invitation. That is so different. I always ask people, how about for you when you receive an invitation? Most of us don't receive a lot of those, to be honest, us included. Or you better be there at such and such time, and don't you think about being late. Well, that's a much different emotional experience than being invited somewhere. I know that's a kind of a crude example, but it's true. Think about it. You get a mailed invitation, like, oh my God, honey, look what this. It's like you're opening up a Christmas present. So that's the same, you'll have the same effect. Staci, when we first came together, she would do this. I thought, like, how do you, I've never been even offered something like that before. Like asking to be invited versus being told.
Makes a huge difference.
Huge.
Our song for today is Joni Mitchell, Both Sides.
Oh, wow. Going back in time.
We're going back in time, but this was so appropriate, I think, for today. As she shares, I've looked at love from both sides, from up, from down, and still love has illusions. I really don't know love at all. Wow. And I think sometimes we think we know our partners really, really well, but then we really, really don't. I really don't know them at all when we start to kind of get down into the layers of it. I think I do based on my parts and pieces that we can actually talk about and share. But when we start to really get into how you tick and what you need and how I tick and what I need, there's a whole nother level of this person, this beautiful human being that you're in love with that emerges. And that's a beautiful thing. We don't realize that that's a get to. We don't ever really want to fully know them because then our journey together has come to a close. Listen to this song along with every song we've ever curated for you for each episode of Love Shack Live by searching up Love Shack Live playlist on Spotify. And again, before we close this episode, go take the quiz, 10 minutes, find out which of the 4 skills is costing you the most right now in your relationship. Thank you so much for being here in the Love Shack with us today. And if this conversation moved you, helped you feel a little more seen, or has given you something to think about, please consider sharing this episode with somebody that you care about. Human to human is how this podcast grows. And if it's helped you personally, please consider leaving us a review. We would love to hear from you and what you get out of this podcast. Remember, as we close, love isn't enough, but skills are. So learn them, practice them, and live them. Bye-bye for now.
All right, it's time to leave the Love Shack. But before we part ways, we want you to know our door is always open and we'll leave the porch light on, ready to welcome you back whenever you need a dose of relationship wisdom. For more resources and tools, visit us at loveshacklive.com to dive deeper into the topics we've explored and find additional support for your relationship journey. Stay connected by subscribing to our podcast. Thank you for being part of our Love Shack Live community.